Hey everyone, welcome to just yet another in an unending series of Frame Rates, the show where we rate frames. We hope you're not as tired as we are. No, everything's great. I'm fine, I'm chipper, I'm happy. The guy I just made chuckle at great effort and expense to myself was my co-host and partner and so what is they called? Hetero life mate, I guess, is what Kevin Smith would say.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Abe Epperson.
That's Abe Epperson. Joining us on this frame rate is a fabulous special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jamie Loftus.
Thanks for being here, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
What are we talking about today?
Well, Jamie picked it, so why don't you reveal, Jamie?
I picked the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yes.
And this is the American version, not the Swedish version.
Mara Land.
So all the snooty
Rooney
folks who can start looking down their noses now, we did not read subtitles to ingest this content.
Oh,
No,
yeah. It
reading.
did it slightly better. I mean, they're both, I think, solid films, but
Abe's seen
This-
both, so he's unimpeachable.
yeah, so, but they're both like, they do the same thing. One's just not in English.
Yeah.
That's like
Well,
basically it.
This is America, man. So
So-
we're talking Rooney Mara, Christopher Plummer, Daniel Craig, and Robin Wright in David Fincher's 2011 The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo,
I didn't
specifically.
realize they're already rebooting this. They're doing another dragon tattoo movie with Claire Foy as the girl.
Is
Lisbeth.
that the
Yeah.
sequel? Because there's three movies. There's three of
The
them.
Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest and The Girl Who Went to Disneyland.
No.
And
There-
Ernest Scared Stupid.
The girl. No, they're doing one
Bird.
that came like way later. I think that they're adapting the fourth one.
Oh, okay.
It's weird.
Book-wise, you mean? They're
Yeah.
based on books, right?
Yeah. So old Stieg.
I'm
Stieg?
I don't know. I'm super unfamiliar with the entire franchise. It's a completely pop culture blind spot. I did not know what it would be about going in. I did not know. I kind of suspected it would be in the Harry Potter or Hunger Games vein.
Oh, whoa. Oh, surprise.
Wow. Because of its
Surprise.
popularity at the time when it came out and the things I was hearing, I was like, it must be one of those like Maze Runner type movies or something.
No,
I mean-
it was a very popular book, and that's why
Yeah.
they remade it.
And no, it is not that.
Yeah, I read all the books, and then I haven't seen the Swedish movies. I remember seeing this in theaters, and there is some stuff that happens in this movie that is crazy to happen in a movie that came out around Christmas. And
Oh,
like
right.
this movie was literally a Christmas release, which is like, whoa, and
Christmas Day?
it worked. It worked maybe a few days before. I think it was
Okay.
like the Friday before Christmas it
Right.
came out.
Yeah, it came out on December 20th, which is actually, strangely enough, where the movie starts. Like the date in the movie.
whoa.
That's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
I picked this movie because I'm really into hacker shit right now, and
And you knew it was about a hacker.
Oh, I knew
Okay.
it was about a hacker. Yeah, like in one of the most egregious hackery looking hackers of all time.
Sure, yeah,
Like
that's-
she's not like the other girls.
Yeah.
She hacks, she codes. She's a little socially awkward.
Yeah. Her hair is cut in a way. She's got piercings.
She looks very sharp.
Yeah.
But also she's still so hot. And you're just like, it's like peak movie hacker. And I wanted to rewatch it.
Oh, rewatch. Okay.
Yeah, I saw
I'd
it when it
seen
came out.
before. Yeah,
So
me
you
too.
inflicted the rape scene on yourself again. That was okay
Yes,
with you? 'Cause
I
was unhappy that you chose this movie for me to watch.
I have a lot of thoughts about that scene.
Sure.
But yeah, I remember I saw the movie. I guess I would have been on like break. I don't know. This movie came out 2011.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I saw it with my mom, and
Oh boy.
yeah. So that was a fun experience. We got to share together. It was. I mean, that scene. I don't know. I mean, should we wait for a while before we talk about that scene?
Probably. We should
Yeah.
probably. I mean, it floats to the surface of your mind because it's so incredibly graphic and.
Yeah,
it's
it's one of the
intense.
most. It's like
Unique,
Straw
but-
Dogs kind of level.
But what is? I think, and maybe it's just me. Tell me if I have like tweaked perception. But should we say what it's about a little bit, like the
Yeah.
plot outline? Because I
Yeah.
do feel like
Logline.
it was a huge hit, but there's got to be. It's not like Groundhog Day where we're like, you've seen it, shut up. Like there's got to be people who haven't seen it. So if you're like
Yeah.
me, you didn't know what it was about at all. Rooney Mara plays Lisbeth, who is a hacker / investigator, which just means like she'll find anything out about anyone.
She's really good
By
at computers.
specifically one thing, which is that she can hack all of your devices and watch what you do. Like she just knocks down privacy.
Right. She breaks into your security system, uses hidden cameras,
And uses
keystroke
that
recorders, all that
to
stuff.
understand how people are. And
Lots
she's
of
also
vague hacker imagery. I just
very-
love it so much.
Mr.
You love
Robot.
hackers.
I love hackers.
If you know Mr. Robot, it's
Yeah,
in the
kinda
same
Mr.
ballpark
Robot.
for sure.
I love Mr. Robot.
It's great. It's a great show.
Episode 2, Fuck Society. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
this show is stupid. I love it so much. Oh, God, yeah.
So yeah, she's a hacker, and Daniel Craig is a disgraced,
Delightful.
philandering journalist who
Hot.
is hot.
A very hot. Yeah. Oh, Daniel Craig in this
because
movie?
it's him,
Unbelievable.
or do you think those attributes are hot?
he's
A
just
disgraced,
no,
philandering
he's just
journalist.
That's what I'm looking
he's
for.
an underwear model. That's where he started, and he was also shooting Bonds at this time. He gained weight to play this role because he thought it shouldn't look, and he didn't do enough.
Yeah,
because
he
he
still
still
looks like a
looks
superhero.
very
so
handsome.
hot, yeah.
But if you cut to any of the James Bonds where we see his shirt off, which is like almost all of them, like he is cut from stone.
Stem
In
to
this
stern.
movie, he's just like a strong guy.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's a
and-
strong, disgraced journalist.
and morally strong because he was disgraced because he was trying to expose the secrets of a horrible, evil conglomerate. Do you remember? Oh, Wennerstrom Group.
Yeah.
Wennerstrom Group.
It's an appropriately
It's a Dutch
evil. Yeah.
I did find without subtitles it was hard because there's so many Dutch names that don't strike my ear naturally. When he was like, find out everything you can about Frode. And it went dun dun dun. I'm like, who's Frode? Oh,
Like
bald
Frodo?
guy. Oh, the bald evil guy. You
I
mean
know him.
Frodo? Yeah. Frodo.
Although Martine, we all know Martin,
Yeah.
so it was easier. for me.
and he's Daniel Craig is Mikhail. So Michael,
And
that's easy.
It's also Stellan Skarsgård, so
Yeah.
he's kind of a name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
recognize him?
to make the long story short, Daniel Craig is hired by Christopher Plummer to solve a long unsolved murder in his family, and he ends up using Lisbeth's services to solve the murder. They become a kind of dysfunctional team / couple. It's kind of complicated, and we'll get into it.
Yeah.
But just so everyone knows the building blocks, of course, once I did understand what genre movie I was in, I knew that this would happen. But of course, they uncover a bigger conspiracy than you even thought was in play. With
Hacking.
way more murders than you even knew, and the murders are creepy, and it's like a Nazi serial killer maniac. And then, of course, they confront the Nazi serial maniac.
There's a sex
And
prison.
defeat him.
There's a
Yeah.
sex prison,
There's-
and Daniel Craig gets Mikhail gets his information on Wernerstrom, so that he's now no longer disgraced. So that like his personal struggle
Yes.
is that he is now seen to be right, and the thing that he was supposed to be doing, he has now like completed it by finding out this other crime. And the only reason that he got that information is that, like Christopher Plummer has dirt on the guy that that's why, like, he wanted to hire him. Is he was like, I know this guy. You were right. You just didn't find it out.
And I'll give it to you if you solve this
If
murder.
you solve this crime. And Lisbeth's arc is basically she's a ward of the state, and she goes through so many fucked up things, and she's basically just Sherlock Holmes with a computer.
Plus
Yeah.
Precious.
Yeah. And
Like if Sherlock Holmes had no advantages in life whatsoever.
and they like working with each other, so they kind of become an item. And that final shot is one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's get to it.
So
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
But like any whodunit, I don't want to get into. But like, there's a bunch of research and a bunch of deals and things.
Computers.
Books. Where it's like, and you find out this little twist and this little turn, but it all leads
Photos.
towards a confrontation with they live. The whole family is rich and they all live on this private island, and everyone has their own mansion. So from the beginning, you're pretty much like, well, one of the mansions houses a serial killer.
Right.
And they confront them and defeat them.
Do you want to hear what the novel was originally called?
Sure, of course.
Men Who Hate Women.
Okay, because he does kills only women.
That could be.
And
the
Lisbeth's
title of
thing
a
is
lot of
about
things.
men who hate. Wait, yeah. So it's interesting because it's kind of a dual plot. That's like how the premise wraps up. But I so much more remember Lisbeth's journey because it's so intense.
Yeah.
Which is that, as you referenced, she's a ward of the state, but specifically becomes the ward of a crooked lawyer who forces her to do humiliating sex acts and rapes her repeatedly to get her money. And then she gets vengeance on him.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy, does she.
Is that the end of that arc? Does
I
he
mean-
ever do anything else, or is he just broken?
She
Well, I mean,
keeps
yeah.
going.
Final shot.
Final shot doesn't involve the lawyer, but you mean it's the end of Lisbeth's arc?
It's
yeah.
their arc together.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of things I like about Lisbeth, and there's a lot of things that it's like, I mean, the general trend of like any time it's like, okay, we're going to get to know, like, you get to know Lisbeth better in this movie than you would usually get to know a female character in any movie. That's net positive. Good. Love it. Hacker? Fine. Whatever. But the way you do it, and this happens all the time, is like through like the rape narrative of like, we find out about her specifically because like she's characterized through rape and humiliating sex acts, and that is like such a common thing to do, to like, oh no, we do know this about her, you know, she was raped, and like, see, we do know her,
and they're also
you know?
like, and she gets to rape someone essentially, so like, isn't that like, she also
Yes,
inflicts
queen?
sexual violence
like,
back?
what? Yeah,
Girl power.
That's
Yeah.
well, I mean, that's what I think this movie is truly about, is that when it comes down to it, he's an investigative journalist. He's good at what he does, but all his job is shine light on problems.
Mm-hmm.
She is like a vengeance demon. So if you notice the three like major crimes that like we inflict on other people that aren't the murderer types, there's three beats of it. The raper gets raped, the murderer gets killed, and the economic thug gets his money stolen. And that's all done by Lisbeth. Like, she's the one who...
Oh, that's
she's the one...
That's a good
Like,
point.
Daniel Craig is not a guy who's going to inflict justice. He believes in the justice of the system. As long as he can prove it, then...
He trusts it'll work out, which is funny because his own life proves that it won't.
It won't.
He just lost.
And
a
so
fake
she
case.
is the one who's just always like, no, there is poetic justice, and I'm going to vigilante this shit because no one's going to do it. So
Right.
I'm gonna,
Right, because basically at the end they
I'm going
know
to take all of his money. I'm
they
gonna
know who's evil,
rape
but she's
this
the
guy.
one who, without working with Daniel Craig or asking his permission, is
Yeah.
like, I'm going to take all his money because he doesn't deserve it.
Right,
Right.
because they're all deplorable and deserve it.
Right.
That scene was really cool.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole wig sequence.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
that's
so.
fun.
Yeah.
And so Abe, I know you say the final shot. Then I know you want to talk.
The
about
final shot to me and why it's important is that Daniel Craig is another man who hates women. Even though they've said several times, like, I really like working with you. I really like working with you. And Lisbeth does, like, come on to him after she's like, sewn his wounds shut.
Yeah.
And she kind of just makes herself a sex prize, which is kind of weird, but isn't out of, like, it isn't out of scale for a woman who has mental health issues because she's been fucked over by so many people. Like that guy she raped, that's not, or the guy who raped her and she got justice back on him. That's probably not the
By
first
shoving
time
a dildo
that's
up his ass
happened.
and tattooing rapist on his chest.
Yeah,
for the record,
which
yeah.
is pretty intense.
Yeah.
But Daniel Craig, like, so, but all she really did is she said, like, I like you, and if you want to have sex right now, let's be that now. And
He
now,
says, I don't think that's a
she
good idea.
thinks
Yeah.
And
he's-
she says, why not?
but
And then they have
he
sex.
doesn't stop her.
Right.
And he is already dating Robin Wright.
Who he lost his wife because he was cheating on her with Robin.
Right, so
yeah.
he's already like a serial adulteress.
Yeah.
Adulterer.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
the book
the
title
last
makes
shot,
that more clear. That's his way of hating women. He doesn't really respect them. Yeah.
Right.
So you know that he, like, off screen, what the next thing that's going to happen is he's going to ruin their relationship because that's what she does. So when she buys, like, the jacket, the motorcycle jacket,
so
that is
cute.
like, it's just like
she buys him hacker
found-
clothes. She
She
thinks
does.
they'll be a hacker
She's
couple.
like, my
Like,
boyfriend's gonna be a hacker
She's
just
like,
like me.
she was assuming that she's like, he's gonna be with me now,
Yeah.
not Robin Wright. So when she catches them outside, she throws it away and like storms off, and you
Yeah.
know the game is on now, and you know that the next target is gonna be
I was wondering.
Daniel Craig.
Is it? Have you
I
guys seen
think-
the sequels?
I don't
I was
remember.
wondering if she's just like an Indiana Jones figure where, or James Bond figure where she's severing all ties with that love interest because in the next movie she'll have a totally different situation. going on.
It is, but they still work with each other in the originals. And
Oh,
the
okay.
Books. This, I think, it's because they knew they were only going to make one. Like Fincher was going to only make one, so that I think is his nod.
Okay.
That's unique to this movie, I believe. Feel free to prove me wrong in the comments.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I think that that's what this movie means, not what the books mean or the other movies mean.
Great. So Jamie, I just want to ask, because I do want to unpack the rape scene, or like in our email thread, you said, I have a lot of thoughts in all capitals. And I know
yes.
that must have been a reference
I feel
also
about
to
everything
40-year-old virgin.
Yes.
But like, we just found out, I didn't know, the book is called The Man Who Hates Women. Especially appropriate for you to be here.
Right.
Thoughts?
On the rape scene specifically?
No, on the women's issues in the movie for sure. But anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, this for me is a tricky movie because it's a movie that I generally like, but there's a lot of, like, the way the female characters are written are, I think, well-intentioned but kind of misguided in a lot of ways. The rape scene specifically bothers me. I mean, it bothers everybody. It is intended to bother the viewer. In the normal way,
but yes.
Yes. but the way it's designed is so many steps removed, where it's like, you know, I guess I respect David Fincher for being ballsy enough to show something so awful on screen. I'm sure that some people seeing scenes like that scene, that was of some use to them, of like, oh my God, this is fucking horrible, and it's not super uncommon to happen. But the way that it's filmed, it's too long. The scene is too long, and it's too long. And the way it's filmed is from the male perspective. The male gaze is very present in the way that scene is filmed. You're not really you're not on Lisbeth's level a lot. You're usually looking down at her, and just the fact that this scene was written by, I did a little research on Stieg Larsson and like what his angle was with that, and he said he witnessed a gang rape that he didn't stop when he was younger, and this was like his,
processing it in some way,
something like that, which, you know, fine, process stuff through your art, whatever, but it's like, this is a rape scene written by a man, then adapted by a male screenwriter, filmed by a man, and directed by a man. And so at no point, like, there's no way that the actual Lisbeth character's pain and suffering can be communicated by that scene, because no one in that whole line could actually understand. And so from that perspective, it really bothers me that it's like, wow, like, you know, you're seeing something awful and common depicted, but you're really not, because you're not there's at no point is the victim's perspective actually represented, you know? So that many dudes who I want to say think they're doing the right thing and doing a sort of progressive artistic thing, it ultimately, I thought it was very misguided, and yeah, because if you look at all the key people involved in this movie, they're all guys. It's like there's no way, and
it's not like that doesn't show up in the final product. As you said, if you parse the shots, it's filmed that way, and that was my problem with it, is it felt transactional to me. Everyone has hot button topics, but I think they're like hot button topics like rape and child molestation that almost everyone in the world overlaps on.
Yeah.
So if you're going to deploy one, I'm always really hard on like, okay, like earn it, or what's the balance or the context. And I felt that it was used solely as a plot building block, which just feels kind of irresponsible to me. It would be like saying like, then this happened, then they were victims of the Holocaust and survived the concentration camps, and that's why they lost their job, and now they need money for rent. And you're like, wait, go back. It's just like such a crazy thing to bring up, that after that happened, I really expected the movie to be mostly about Lisbeth's processing. Because I am someone who cannot encounter a graphic rape scene and not think like, oh, okay, well now the rest of our concern is for that victim character and what are the ramifications of this like tragedy.
Yeah.
And instead it's just like, I do think they're only, I agree with you that like, I'm sure David Fincher isn't like, well, fuck her. He's like,
I think they thought they were doing
yeah,
not
it's
a bad
trying
thing.
to, I mean, what I think it's trying to say is it's trying to be like, this is how it's once again from a male perspective, because it's trying to say what a tragedy this is, and how callous she has to be in just to deal with it. But that's just kind of like surface value kind of assessment.
And it's enveloped within like, but we still just have to get to the end of this mystery. That's what the focus is. And I was just saying, playing the rape card, especially when it's on camera and graphic in a long scene,
Yeah.
draws focus. So like
So
it's
much,
weird that you're
yeah.
not focusing on it
And then
afterward.
they kind of, it
They
kind of
move
becomes
on.
an afterthought.
Well, it's like, oh, she got physical vengeance on him, so I guess her heart is clean of that
Well,
damage. You're like, that doesn't work.
She's
like
over
that.
it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, no.
Right, that's-
And
yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the implication of that. Of
That
like,
absolutely
she's
is.
done. And
And they're
the
like, that's how badass she is. She can
I think
just
it's
get
that.
over it.
Yeah, she's so calloused it doesn't matter. Like she hates it, but she's somehow superhuman, and doesn't have to deal with it anytime there's a tragedy that's thrown in her way.
Yeah.
And that's like that's misunderstanding rape victims. It's done from this space, like you were saying, the way it was shot from the criminal's point of view.
Yeah, like you're literally seeing what it would be like to rape Lisbeth, and that is just
Interesting.
not the way to go about the scene at all.
And you just made me realize that also when she gets vengeance, it's shot and scored and edited like a horror scene from the guy's point of view again. You, of course, are rooting for her and pleased that she inflicts pain on this guy because he's like the worst guy you've seen depicted.
Sure.
But it's interesting that when he's in the elevator and suddenly she appears, in film grammar terms, she's the monster. You're like, oh, shit,
Well, yeah,
she's there.
I think they were more occupied with the thought that out of that scene, we want to make everyone to think that she's a badass, not a rape victim.
Right.
Right.
But those aren't mutually exclusive.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly.
For the way Elizabeth's character is developed, it's like my two least favorite ways of characterizing a female, which is first by like she was raped, so she's a little screwed up, and then later I was like, oh, I forget if she has daddy issues, and of course she has daddy issues, and that comes up later, and literally the other main, what is it, Helen? Is it who's
His
the
co-editor?
No, the girl from the 60s.
Who turns... Oh, Harriet. The
Harriet,
murder...
Harriet.
The disappearance he's investigating. Spoiler alert. She's not dead. That's the twist. But like 18 other women are.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's the same exact thing where it's like she was raped as a young girl and it was by her father. It's the same. Like it's the same lazy plot device twice in the same...
3 times. Because
and-
what does a serial killer do?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Kill
It's-
women in sexual ways. Specifically because they're women, right? Like he calls them immigrant whores and shit.
Yeah.
Because he's a Nazi.
He hates women.
He hates... Yeah.
He's a Nazi woman hater, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. There's the with the lawyer character, it's like he's so there's not a redeeming thing about him. Like he's cartoonishly evil
Right.
at times, and that's another kind of. I mean, I don't know how hard I'll come down in the movie for it, but it is like something I've noticed of like if there is a character who is like a rapist or something like that, they're so cartoonishly bad that like when you're taking in that information, you're like, oh, that's what a rapist is like.
Yeah.
Right.
And no one is like that. No
Yeah.
one is
It's
actually like
it's a great
that.
point.
It actually makes it safer because you're like, well, that guy's just a crazy outlier because I've never
Right.
seen anyone who acts like
That
that.
person doesn't exist in the world.
I mean, he
Yeah.
literally says at one point, which made me go like, oh, where he goes, you're not that we're not that different, you and I. That line
Oh,
is
yeah.
actually in
So
this movie.
cheesy.
And I'm just
Yeah.
like, man, okay, so
Except for one thing.
Except-
I'm evil.
I'm evil. And his whole monologue is just like, we need to purge them. Like, he's just so bad. And you're right. That's a great point.
It's
I didn't even think about that, how it normalizes rape in an offhanded way by saying that it's not, anyone could be capable of rape. That is actually kind of truer than just only evil people.
Only
Right.
this guy.
You'll be able to
this
tell.
guy is
Yeah.
not.
Like twisting his mustache and going like, I'll rape you.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and it's like if anything, if the past year has like taught us anything, is people have been raped by like beloved people and people
Right,
who
yeah.
have positive qualities. And
Yes.
like I don't know. I feel like showing that if you're going to show something so graphic and so awful, having her raped by like a cartoon villain, like what does that really accomplish and what is the takeaway of that? Because I feel like if you're a guy watching that scene, you're like, well, I would never do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I don't see myself in this character at all.
And there
Right.
wasn't a payoff where that became foundational to their solving of the mystery or changed her character. And like she was callous before, she's callous after. It's just a thing that happened. And I'm like, well, it should have more.
It's very voyeuristic.
Yeah. All right. But I am interested because you said you kind of like this movie and you don't want to come down it all the way. Mm-hmm. So I do want to talk for a little bit at least how it struck us as like a movie. Were you engrossed? Were you entertained? Is that what you like about it? Is the movie part of the movie?
I like hackers and I like thrillers. And so in that way, I thought it was like divorced from all the issues I have from it. I like enjoyed the movie in terms of like the mystery. It was cheesy and dumb and
right, but they did like cool stuff.
But
like
it was cool.
It was cool. Like I liked especially they have this photo and then she's like, I wish we had hers. And then they like recreate like the topographical thing in 66 or whatever it was, like to make sure that they know who that woman is, and they use other photos to find out who might know her. Like it was
cool hacker shit.
Cool hacker shit. It's not all hacker shit.
That's
I was gonna say their union.
Most of it comes down to cross-indexing books and old files.
It's both of them, and I also love that they kind of come to the same realization around the same time, using their different like what they're good at.
They both realize who the dude is. Yeah.
He studies the problem and goes to books and photos
and snoops in person.
And they both find out that Martin did it.
It's Martin. Yeah. And then because she's the badass, he gets captured in the sex dungeon and she runs in and saves him.
I thought there was something very interesting that I didn't catch the first time, which is like super damning, but it totally is. It's not excusable, but I see it's what made me understand the end more than I did before, because I was confused of what, like, so that was the moment you chose to leave these two people, and like, what is it saying? But there's this moment now that made me realize it. It's just that she is someone's forcing their will upon Lisbeth, or she is just aggressively doing the job, like usually pretty well. She never asks permission for anything other than when she knows someone has power over her, right? Like, give me money.
Can I talk now? Should I talk now? In the first meeting, yeah.
Yeah, but she doesn't really ask permission when she does her job. Like, she just hacks shit. And she just breaks in.
Well, you especially see that with the woman at the archives, where she doesn't like, just leave the goddamn keys.
Yeah, exactly. But as soon as she saves Daniel Craig and he's on the ground and she like ungags him and she's hitting Martin with the golf club, and he runs off, and he says, "There's a gun over there," and he grabs the gun, and then she starts to go, and then she stops, and then she turns back to Daniel Craig and she asks him one question, and the question is, "May I kill him?" And he just goes, "Yes." And I always thought that was a weird, strange thing.
She's kind of out of character.
I think
it's out of character,
but
it's because I think she believes that they're an item now and they're sharing.
Or at least partners. I thought it was that she thought they were partners now and they have to run shit by each other. Yeah.
She thinks that they save each other, and she's not seeing the union.
And
like
she's respecting that she knows he's not as ruthless as her, so she's quickly checking to make sure, would you be mad at me if I killed this guy? Because that's what I plan to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so that made the ending clear of when she feels betrayed. It's because she was giving him so much effort in her own way, and he was just acting like a person who was just like, we are professional. She was like, well, we also have been sleeping with each other. And like, remember, there's also that moment
and he's
where,
like, I sleep with lots of people I work with.
Yeah, obviously. That one moment also brings it home, which is that he puts her hand in her shirt and he takes it away, and then she asks him to put it back. So it's like, this is the only way that she knows how to espouse love for someone, is whatever cocktail this relationship is. And so she's been really betrayed.
Yeah. That's sad.
It's really sad.
I was a little, there's like a few, most of the people in Lisbeth's life, one thing I really did like about that character is that like the way they deal with her like queerness in this movie is like, so it's not even a discussion. Yeah. Like there's like, she's sleeping with a woman, and Daniel Craig is like, I'm here now, which was like, okay. But it never like really comes up again, and it's never like I was anticipating like a homophobic joke that never came.
Or even the serial killer who you could hide behind because he is homophobic, like saying shit to her.
Right. Like
but they just let it ride.
But they just treat it like this is a part of her life, which it is, which is great.
Yeah.
Something that I didn't like was that there are, I don't know what their names are, but there are two older male figures in Lisbeth's life. The only people she has in her life, for better or worse, are men, with the exception of the woman she sleeps with.
And her father figure's in a coma.
Her father figures in a coma.
Is
and
it
then
true
there's
that at
one
the
guy,
end we see that he's well enough that she can play chess with him, but he can't talk?
Yeah, he
Something
moves the
like
chess
that.
piece.
Okay.
But it's all her like trusted figures are men, and I just wanted, like, if I was, making tweaks to this story, it's like, why can't she talk to another woman? Like, that to me is not clear in the character of like why that wouldn't be a part of her life.
And even like you said, the one woman she sleeps with is clearly a one night stand to her.
Yeah.
Because her partner gets there and she's like, get out of my apartment.
Right. She was like, I'm sorry, Daniel Craig just got here, so you have to leave.
He just ran through the wall and made a Daniel Craig shaped hole.
Right.
Like the beginning of Casino Royale.
I think
Kool-Aid
he's
Man
trying to
style.
make a point because he's like, you didn't have any regard for my privacy, so I'm not going to have any regard for yours.
Oh, Daniel
yeah.
Craig in that scene is
I
making a
didn't
point.
mind
Yeah.
that he like burst. I thought it was like kind of a fun scene for her to
Right.
have to like deal with that. But yeah, it's like the only trusted figures in her life are
Or an
men.
old caretaker who, I guess the reason she likes is that he was like a nice guy, but at the second he has a stroke.
He probably never molested her.
He has
Maybe
to
that's
now
what
go
he's
to-
got going
Right.
for
What
him.
is
Like,
his
is
name?
that the bar? Bjorn?
Bjornman.
Bjorn.
Yoda.
Bjornman.
silly.
Well, he's
name.
that's the raper guy.
Oh, okay. Just call him the lawyer.
There-
Bjorda? I'm not going to
The
remember.
lawyer. I think he's more of like a social worker.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, but she's 23 too, which is confusing. I'm like,
That
why does she
was-
still have a social worker if she's 23?
Well, 'cause she doesn't. So he
she
asks
explains
her.
a little bit, but I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is true in Sweden.
She says, yeah, it could be a different legal system, that she's committed enough violent crimes that she's never allowed to have, like someone always has. But that's really, like, even
'Cause
after...
Sweden doesn't have a lot of prisons.
Wouldn't it just be like you're an
Yeah.
adult now, go to jail, and when you get out, no one's responsible for you? But maybe it's
Someone
different
from
in
Sweden tell us if this is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand that, but I mean, they were like, she's got to get raped, so we've got to figure out a way to make this
But she
happen.
can't.
Might
She has
be.
to be older
There.
than 18 because then we can't do that scene. So
Right, because then
get right, boys.
Fincher can't wild out if,
Well, that
if
is interest-
she's a child.
It does feel like if you call it The Men Who Hate Women, everything seems much more seamless to me. It almost feels like Stig. Is that the author's name?
Stig.
Like you said, like wrote something that was pretty structurally sound about men hating women in various ways, and then he's like, oh, remember that scarring thing that I can never forget because I witnessed it and it scarred the shit out of me? Those men were hateful towards women. I guess I can fold that in.
Yeah.
But it doesn't structurally link up in any ways that were like cathartic or insightful to me.
Yeah, and the way the camera treats her body throughout the movie too kind of bugs me. Of like, it just goes in. And it's like, yeah, obviously Rooney Mara is very attractive, but like that, there's that weird consenty scene where she has sex with Daniel Craig for the first time, and she just like drops her panties in, which is like, you should not do that. And
Wait,
he's
in what? You mean just on the ground?
yeah, well, she's just
She's
like
completely disrobed immediately.
yeah, they were like just working, and then she's just like, and now we fuck, and
Yeah.
he was like, I don't think so, and she was like, no, and now we fuck. I was
Yeah.
like, that's, you of all people should know a little more about consent, but and then the way that the camera treats her body during sex scenes is very headless woman.
That I
kind
totally
of,
felt.
again. Yeah,
I do agree with the point Abe made, and that my mom also made, who's a rape victim, which is that's not necessarily unrealistic behavior because you don't know, some rape victims
I think it's
become
stereotypical behavior,
It's-
though. I think it's the easiest choice to make.
I guess
that,
maybe
like-
I'm a dumb caveman, and please check me if I'm wrong, but I think the most obvious choice, as someone who can't understand what it's like to be raped, hopefully forever in the future, would be to never have sex again. But it's become weirdly cliche to have the person be obsessed with sex now.
Yeah, I
It's interesting.
the like sexually promiscuous rape victim is something I've seen a lot of times, and I don't think that it's a very useful.
I think
useful
in real
thing to
life,
do.
both can happen and any shade between. Like
Yeah.
something like that's just a nuclear bomb in your life. people have found many different ways to cope, wildly
Sure.
different ways to cope. So I guess, I don't know. I always go back and forth because I do think, like you said, the horror of rape or the Holocaust or anything like that. Like, there's a reason to make fucked up movies. There's a reason we make fucked up movies and go
Right.
to them. So it's just so tricky, yeah. Especially when you haven't lived that experience. So you're like, at the end of the day, I don't know. My guess isn't better than Fincher's, but I feel like neither I or David Fincher should be guessing what being raped feels like.
Yeah.
That's like
It's
where I land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that's a cool thing to not have to know.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna give that such a gigantic portion of the movie and platform, and that's the scene that everyone remembers from this movie, then like have someone who's qualified to speak on, or at least consult. Yeah.
There's something
go
else
ahead.
I want to talk about the rape, the filming of that sequence, because it just sounds like
Really
why
honing
did the
in.
actors do this to themselves? Because Fincher didn't request this. Mara and the guy who played Bjorman, who does the raper,
The pig.
the pig, yeah. He watched. He didn't even watch dailies. As soon as the scene was over, they shot it over the course of like a half a day. He did not come out of his his hotel room for like 3 days, and apparently
It's gotta be a traumatic film.
Like, didn't want to be
drank-
seen by
he
the
just-
other people.
Yeah,
and
he
shit.
just drank
Yeah.
and stayed indoors. And after the
I
scene,
always wonder that about actors, where it's like, this is your big break, but you
Mara-
have to murder all these kids.
Yeah. And Mara got actually bruised because she told him to like go for it.
Yeah.
Right.
And when she arrived on set next day, the makeup artist thought that she had already been through makeup because
So she had bruises.
She had bruises everywhere.
God damn it.
So it's like how much it always makes me think about like how much do we go, like artists going for it is like an
yeah.
interesting thing.
But you hear
but,
about
like, how-
Shelley Duvall in The Shining, and you're like, was that worth her experience
And
that she had to go through?
There
Yeah.
isn't a lot of literature on how Mara felt about this, but like she didn't request that it. Like I don't know what her feelings are about it. If she was like, "Well, we got the shot,"
Right.
kind of stuff,
Or if it bothered
or if
her
she was
at
just
all,
like,
or...
"I thought it was going to be a lot less, and I should have said something." Like I want to know what her thoughts
Or
are.
Yeah.
she's like, I'm a crazy artist. I always
That's
go
what I
hard.
want. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's the
There's
other
a lot
thing.
of actors who
She
feel that
does
way.
that too. Like she got those piercings for the role. Those
Right.
aren't prosthetics.
I did like the symbolism of early on she gets a tattoo on a bruise, which is something I've never seen in a movie. The
And it's
symbolism's
also on
fairly
the
shallow,
ankle.
but I like
It's
it.
like, this is gonna hurt as hell.
And she's like, I'd rather experience the pain and have the bruise be covered up. You know, that my outward appearance covers the pain.
It's a
and
metaphor.
I like that.
Hacker metaphor.
My favorite thing is visual metaphor, and they can even be dumb, and I'm still like, at least they're trying.
Yeah.
Because I grew up liking comic books the most, and then transitioned to movies because I thought, oh, it's just storyboards for movies. And then so many movies, and this is a real tangent, and I'll shut up after the sentence, but so many movies are like, the shot is just the people are there in the scene talking. The background was selected because make your shit mean shit visually, people. And that's my problem with Fincher. If no one's gonna do it, I will. I thought this movie, just as a movie, was fucking boring and bloated as hell. And I feel like I just don't connect with Fincher. Every Fincher thing I've ever seen
Not a fan?
drags really hard for me, and there's too much pastel yellow wall.
I haven't thought about that. I guess I find myself kind of bored during a lot of David Fincher movies, but I'm like, but that's a part of it. Does that make sense?
I
I'm
do
like,
the same
I'm
thing.
supposed to sort of be
I do the
boring.
same
Because that's
thing
what I was
with
like,
Wes
all
Anderson.
the research parts, I was
Yeah.
like, what the fuck are we doing with this third montage of them researching in a library? What the fuck are
Yeah.
Uh,
we doing? This movie, I looked, I already know it's 2 hours and 48
It's really
minutes.
long, yeah.
Can we move this shit along?
There's a lot of directors who have that problem. For me, Fincher isn't necessarily one of them. Wes Anderson, I'm just like, oh, I get it. It's twee again.
I don't
there's
feel that way about Wes Anderson.
There's
Weird.
floral print again. So like you say yellow wall, and I'm like, yeah, that's like Wes Anderson. though.
Symmetry, baby.
Yeah, just like, oh, use the same lens every shot for your entire movie. How fun for you.
I just like his collection of films better, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Scorsese's the other guy who's like both the most lauded guy that I hate active that I like think his movies
Interesting.
suck and are
he does,
boring.
He does a lot of interesting framing, if that's...
I know.
But
It's
sometimes you just don't like it.
I'm a big structuralist,
Mhm.
and every time I explain, it's like my problem is like the structure's like this of all of his movies. Like, I'm just waving my hand randomly in the air. And people are like, yeah, who cares? Goodfellas is just a bunch of cool shit that happened. Remember that one scene? And I'm like, all I care about is that when you look at all the scenes from very far away, they have a perfect structural shape that makes a point. And that's just the way I am. That's the kind of movie I like.
Yeah.
And this did have that. It's a very well-made film in the sense that
good.
It looks good,
Yeah.
and it's structurally cookie cutter
Yeah.
in a good way. By which I mean, like, it doesn't miss any beats that it should have.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I still felt like it was like, I just saw Don't Breathe, and I just saw Green Room. And at the end of the day, it's just another person tied up in a sex dungeon with a white serial killer there
Right.
talking about what he's going to do to him. And I've been seeing a lot of those lately. So it didn't strike me as original, especially if you've seen Don't Breathe. The ending's so similar that I was like,
Really?
I probably would have been more affected by this movie if I hadn't just seen Don't Breathe.
I thought the cheesiest, like, over the top, like, sex dungeon moment was when he turned on the music. Like, God, that is such
Enrico
a...
Flow or whatever.
Yeah.
Orinoco Flow by Enya,
Or
great
Orinoco
song.
Flow.
Yeah, great song, but I'm like, if I have to see some old fucking guy murder someone in a sex dungeon to an unusual song one more time, I'm gonna walk out a window.
Yeah, it's
like,
so American Psycho, isn't
yeah,
it? You know?
it's so like derivative and
Sweet
lame.
Psycho. But don't just take my word for it, because it seems like 2 out of 3 of us were at least engaged by it, and I'm a Fincher hater, so that's what makes the world go round.
Yeah.
There were moments of this movie where I'm like, oh, this is kind of boring, but for some reason I'm like, I'm supposed to feel this way. So I don't know.
I
see what
think
you're saying,
because
though.
Fincher structures all his films correctly and traditionally, he can put in filler material, and you're like, well, it must be intentional,
right.
because the beats are still hitting. when
And
they
with
should.
with David Fincher movies, I'm like, well, something I like is gonna happen soon, even if
Sure,
I don't like what's
sure.
happening right now.
Right.
Yeah,
What
which
they were
is, I
like.
guess, a kind of a bleak outlook.
I know, like, because he knows what to do with scene work. You know, like, you know, it's not even, doesn't have to be complex, but like you're saying, you're like, do something with the time that you're allotting on screen. You know, like when she says to her old caretaker, like, she says, I made a friend. She moves a pawn piece. It's like,
First steps.
first steps, and it's just like and also she's kind of a pawn in this other
Yeah.
guy's game.
Right.
So it's got like symbolism.
No,
and
you're
so
right.
you go like, oh, so this is that kind of movie.
I'm
The
not-
one with symbolism.
Yeah, there's like directors
yeah.
and then real directors, and I'm not knocking Fincher out of the pantheon of real directors.
Right.
He's just not my favorite of them.
No,
that's all.
exactly. But like I totally.
But yeah,
know what
he
you mean.
tries and he does shit
He
with
tries,
his visuals.
and
he
so
totally
it makes
does.
you kind of feel like even if the movie's like I'm confused or what's going on with this movie,
Mm-hmm.
you always feel like kind of like you were saying like something good is going to happen because he's always doing that. So you're like, well, so one of these times that's going to be really cool.
Yeah,
That
sure,
was
yeah.
just like fine.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, something good will happen soon.
Yeah.
I trust him enough to be like, it'll get good again. Right now, kind of, maybe I'll go pee.
And when the killer revealed himself, I was suitably tense and
Pretty
scared.
good, yeah.
But then when I looked back at it and crunched the numbers, I was just like, oh, wait, like you said. I mean, so many things about the killer actually are cliche when you boil them down. I think
yeah.
he seems fresher literally because it's in Sweden where you haven't seen the set before and he's speaking with an accent. But it's like, he's raping and killing women based on Bible verses. And you're like,
Yeah.
that's
boring.
everything. Yeah, that's every serial
That's
killer in a
7.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they're like, well, why did you do it? Because my dad did it and his dad did it before him. Okay, so
Well,
stock
okay.
answer.
Right.
Okay, next.
Okay.
And the reveal that Harriet's alive. I mean, I think I wasn't surprised by it because I vaguely remembered that that's what happened the
That's
first
the
time.
big twist, I
That's
guess,
the big,
yeah.
which is a pretty cool twist. But then again, the payoff of it is lame. Of like, well, me also raped as well, and that is the one thing about me. And now you know, and you're just like, well, fuck.
Well, why are
There-
you in hiding? Yeah. The
Yeah.
rape. Oh, so you're not dead, but you were raped and you can't leave your house. So
So okay.
I guess things are okay now because we found that out. Yeah.
Also, I think it would have
Right.
been so much more effective if Lisbeth was the one who figured that whole thing out and got to have that moment. 'Cause she's like in that scene nearby.
Harriet, yeah.
And like, I wish that that was a moment where I was like, oh, that would have been a great moment for two women to interact in a meaningful way inside of this story, which doesn't really happen at all in this whole movie. And it's like, yeah, I guess you sort of get a moment for Daniel Craig's character, but I think that scene would have just been like, from a story perspective, way more impactful if
I agree.
If she had that conversation instead of him, because I mean he does what you sort of what men sort of have to do when a woman is like, I was raped. There, he was like, oh,
That's like the worst
that
thing I've
sucks.
ever heard. Yeah,
Right? Yeah, and like he does that. He acts appropriately, but I just like because they were recycling the exact same narrative for this character. It's like, okay, let's have them interact
And
then,
you have
because they could bond.
Two rape victims talk about a more meaningful connection than a dude who's just like, I bet that is
like
hard.
that freaking sucks, dog. Like you're like, okay, he's not wrong to be saying that, but like that scene would have been a
Layered
way
and
better scene.
sophisticated, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally
agree with
true.
that.
Because by the end, as someone who's coming in fresh, I wrote, again, this is the second movie today. I also wrote, how fucking long is this movie? But I also wrote,
Yeah, it's long.
I thought it was called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Because
Yeah.
she's way more interesting than Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig I like as an actor, and that actually made it more compelling. But if it were someone I didn't know, I would really have a hard time being interested in the Daniel Craig character. She's the title character because she's the most interesting, and the most interesting things happen around and to her and from her.
Yeah.
It's weird how unpresent she is in the end. And I feel like the author had to do that because
It's
again,
Princess
it's
Bride
so
syndrome.
stock. You want to forget she's there so that at the end she can come from off camera and kill the guy with a
I
golf
think it's
club.
the name of the book, and the book is a lot more in Lisbeth's head, so it's
That
just
is
a matter
true,
of
yeah.
branding.
Is it written
but-
from her POV, the book?
I think so. I haven't read the books,
don't
but
think
I know
so.
that that's the title of the book. So
Well, if it was, I would argue even
I don't think it's
further
written
that
from her.
it behooves them to make the filmmaking match that intent, that this is supposed to be viewed from her mind, which it's not.
I'm pretty sure it's written third person.
Fincher films very third person.
Yeah.
So like I would only ever have him adapt a book that's third person.
That's I mean that's Princess Bride is like the prime example I go to for like the movie that's named after a woman but isn't actually about her. Fun twist. Love when they do that. Yeah.
My favorite thing about that is their relationship before they re-meet many years later is him only saying "as you wish" and then he like disappears. Mm-hmm. For all she knows, he's mentally delayed and like doesn't speak. Like she's in love with a guy that she doesn't know if he even talks.
That movie does not fare well on. Yeah,
Ooh,
we had some fun with that on the
covered it and
Bechdel
we
Cast.
still found it delightful. I still like the parts that are good.
There are some good parts. We did like a year and a half ago, and I don't fully remember, but it didn't fare well on our.
Do you remember how you guys felt?
yeah.
I imagine a lot of films that I like still need thorough checking on these issues. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's how we do it.
is there anything I'm overseeing that's problematic about the Inigo Montoya scene? Because that's what gets you in the heartstrings.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. And I'd have to revisit it.
Other than I guess the Mandy Patinkin's doing an accent he might not have the right to do, but I don't know.
Oh, but Mandy Patinkin.
That's a matter of
rules.
debate these days.
Did you know that Mandy Patinkin got Kelsey Grammer the role of Frasier? That's
No.
my favorite thing about Mandy Patinkin.
that
He's
is
so
such
generous.
A weird thing.
Did you know that on the run of Frasier has sex with at least 118 different women?
And that's so realistic.
Well, constantly complaining about how they're losers who never get laid. It's
Yeah.
bizarre.
Oh, Frasier fucks, dude. They're
Frasier
I guess
That's a t-shirt. Frasier fucks.
Mandy Patinkin, I guess, was offered that part, and he was like
He would've been good.
generous enough to be like, it doesn't seem like a good fit for me. You know who could really use a boost right now? My pal Kelsey Grammer.
So does that mean
What a
in Cheers
lovely
days?
thing.
That had to have been
Yeah.
before Cheers.
Yeah.
So Mandy Patinkin
Mandy.
fucking gave him a 15-year career.
career.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
More like Mandy Bethankin, because you should be thanking
Thanking
him.
Swish.
Swish.
Mandy
Thank you
Patinkin
for humoring me.
rules. Oh, he's the best.
I love Mandy
There's a
Patinkin,
great.
yeah.
Oh, sorry to keep talking about Mandy Patinkin, but there's a great YouTube video of him, where he's being interviewed. I think about Homeland. He's on that
Okay.
show.
Yes, he is.
And and during the interview, one of the reporters that is interviewing him gets a text that his wife has gone into labor, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I have to go." And the other woman continues the interview, and he's like, "What happened?" And they're like, "Oh, his wife just went into labor." And Mandy Patinkin gets so happy, and he's like, "That's so thrilling! Oh my God, tell me more!" And then he just starts talking about someone else's baby, and stops talking
like
about
one
Homeland.
of those people who just is genuinely like
He was
happy for you or anyone. Yeah.
I just think
Just
he's a
stop
great
the
person.
podcast, talk about,
It's like the opposite of the
Sorry,
Christian
material.
Bale clip that leaked. Yeah. See, that'd be funny. A guy blocks your shot 20 times. You finally go, "You're a great guy, dude. I just need to stop and say you're doing great."
Doing great.
Yeah. Everyone's here seeing how good you're doing. All right. Tangents usually mean it's time to wind down. But Jamie, I know you are like me and take notes.
Yeah.
Are there major topics of interest we haven't shared with the people? Because they want to know.
Let's see.
want to
My
know.
first note is this movie is too fucking long.
Most movies these days are too long.
Yep.
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, my big issues are they're pretty high level issues of the rape narrative is so lazy and bad. Lisbeth doesn't get to interact with any women, even when it makes sense and would be a more effective story choice for her to interact with women. But women can't be talking in movies because it's not allowed. The rape scene is a nightmare that isn't as impactful as it thinks it is.
Also, I would say the title sequence fetishizes the upcoming rape scene, which I only realized in retrospect.
Oh my God, what a cheesy, but also like...
Trent Reznor did the title track.
Yes, and it's so hacker. It's so... The opening to this movie is, first of all, way too long, but so much hacker imagery. Like,
Well, you're
so
watching
good.
like oil spill on barbed wire wrapped around a keyboard. You're
It's a
like, we
screen.
get it. You're a hacker.
It's a screensaver. It's a literal screensaver. I got really amped up like during the intro, and then the movie's kind of like very quiet and like not the vibe.
Yeah, hacking.
I was getting ready for like, whoa.
I expected way more action sequences.
Yeah.
I guess I just went into it with weird expectations, and then it was totally. It was like. Not what I expected, or lesser than, or greater than. It was totally unrelated to anything I expected.
The title sequence sort of sets you up for a movie that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
Right. I'm kind of pissed now that there is no scene where she's on her motorcycle and she's hacking with her like wrist computer.
Which you seem to see in the
while
chaos of the title
She's
screen.
getting chased by, I don't know, goons.
Big note. She never says I'm in.
Yeah. Or I need 5 more seconds. You have one.
Is she a real hacker?
She
If
also, I don't
says,
think, ever
"I'm
says
in."
hack.
I know.
She
And
calls
that's
herself
one
an
of the
investigator.
Yeah,
it's
that's one of
like-
the things
That-
hackers say is hack.
We gotta hack this. Let's hack faster.
I'm a hacker. Let's hack this.
Embrace hacking culture is what I think, Lisbeth. I mean, that's really her biggest character flaw is she's not leaning
not-
into the whole hacker thing enough.
She's got a lot going for her.
You're not one of those people who doesn't know who they are. You know who you are. You're just not admitting it
You're
to
a
yourself.
hacker.
You're a hacker.
You're a
natural hacker.
That's what one of her millions of male guidance counselors should have told her. Like, Lisbeth, you're a hacker. You were born to hack.
And
You're
she
right.
goes, my God,
You're right.
I am a hacker.
And she didn't say one of those great, like, Mr. Robot lines that I love to hate so much, where it's like, I should have been hacking myself. And you're just like, whoa, self-aware hacker.
She doesn't say mainframe.
What's the point?
Yeah, if you still want to watch this movie, I think you're thoroughly
She
prepared.
kind of types slow.
Does she wear fingerless gloves? I forget.
No.
Oh,
No,
man,
just-
come on.
Just hands. She just wears hands.
Just normal
Unbelievable.
hands.
Unprofessional.
Yeah, really. Think this through.
Well, that means
Fincher.
there's room for you to corner the hacking industry.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. I've been trying
I've
to
seen some hacker
infiltrate-
photos of you online.
I just did an hour-long show about hacking last night.
Nice.
I love hackers.
She does have a necklace that's just a razor blade, though.
That is cool.
That's true. Yeah,
That's
that's
very
true.
hacker.
That is very hacker.
She gets most of the visual cues, nails them. It's like, but are her nipples pierced? Of course she's a hacker.
Yeah.
Like she's, oh God. It's so good. It's so
And you're
bad.
saying she did all the piercings for real.
Yeah, and she said that she had them all taken out after,
Oh.
except the nipple piercing. And it's not because she like liked it or it was cool, is that it was so painful that she was like, I don't want to have to do it again if I
For a
ever
different
have
role?
to.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
That's the same reason my dick is pierced.
The fact that Rooney Mara got real piercings does nothing for me and doesn't make me think she did a better job. I'm like, but I wouldn't have known that.
Exactly.
It's like, what do you, high five
And
for
then
you.
it's like, I don't know, it's weird to me.
Just like I don't think she...
I can't speak to it.
Yeah.
It's not my place. Because, like, that's the blurry line I'm also always trying to educate and navigate is, of course, we live in a crazy puritanical, like, denigrating, the Madonna whore thing, where it's like, but also, so I'm like, and are you really so sure you're going to show your tits in so many more movies that you need to keep the piercing? But what if she likes to show her tits? Who am I to say, like, I don't know where to land on that
Yeah,
stuff.
we could get into it. But
It'll take many more hours.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll take that time sometime off mic because I like to be educated. I also want to ask if either of you guys have seen the American Gods show at all.
I have.
No.
The title sequence of this reminded me. I think like the American Gods title sequence is so cool. It's like
it's good.
It looks similar to this, but it's way better executed.
Cool.
Check it out, even if you only want to watch title sequence, because knowing that it's about religion filtered through the lens of America, you don't even need to know anything else to get all the visual symbolism in the intro. It's really dope. Cool.
Hackers are cool. That's my conclusion.
Hackers
Yeah, I
are
was sorry to
Hackers
get away from our
freaking
central
rule.
point.
Thumbs
Hackers are
up,
cool.
hackers. Thumbs down, magicians.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is weird because they are kind of in the same family as of difficult to be around.
Where do like mentalists and cold readers fall for you?
Kind of a gray area. This is my neutral zone.
Gray matter area.
Whoa.
Hackers are cool, puns are cool,
Swish.
and you guys are cool, and Jamie's cool for being here. Thank you again, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna make you rotely repeat your info because some people might only hear this episode. Where can folks find your work online?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at Jamie Loftus Help, and I have a weekly podcast about the portrayal of women in movies called the Bechdel Cast.
And you do regular live shows around LA too, right? So
Yeah, I'm a stand-up.
if you're local, yeah.
Yeah, come see me do a
So
stand-up.
check out all that shit.
Come see my hacker show.
She has one.
She hacks.
Not
I'm
a
doing
joke.
it in
She
Boston,
hacks-
Philly, and LA in the next
Oh, you're
month.
touring the Hacker Show.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
hack the planet?
That is a direct line from Hack the Planet, Hack Yourself.
You're already more of a hacker than Lisbeth is.
Yeah. Yeah, she's nothing compared to me. I love the Zero Sam ones.
Whoa, Jamie just drove off on a motorcycle. That's a weird way to end the podcast. She throwing something in a dumpster?
I actually just noticed your tattoo. That's just ones and zeros.
Yeah. I've got frosty tips. I mean,
You mean
I'm
in
like,
the
I
form
don't
of a Zamboni?
The girl with the Zamboni tattoo is a far more compelling narrative.
Yeah, with the Zamboni.
That's where we're at.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.